Yo, man, what's going on? It's the one and only, and we're back. It's been a minute, and I am joined here by someone that I have a lot of history with, someone that, when it comes to the Latino community, is a legend, 20 years strong now, the one, the only, Frankie J. How have you been?
Smooth Vega. I've been good, bro. Thank you. First and foremost, thank you for having me on your show and allowing me to, to reach the masses through your platform. And man, it's been a great journey thus far, all these years of just nonstop music and nonstop touring and nonstop love from the fans. It's been incredible. I can't complain. It's been amazing and all of the above, man. So, we're continuing the journey with even through this crazy pandemic that we're living. Man, I can't complain. I'm good. Thank God. Family is healthy, and just trying to, keep the grind going and stay above water.
Well, man, the name of the show is Nothing Beats Experience, and we are going to dig into your experience here in just 1 minute. But before we do, for the people that don't know who I am, I have an extensive history. I started a company several years back, and I route a lot of national tours for a lot of national artists. Here's a cool story that I often share with people. My very first national booking ever was in 2008, and it was with you, my friend. Frankie J was my first show ever. Let's say you pop the cherry. Nice. You the booking cherry.
That's hilarious.
Man, we sold out the show.
Hey, cheers to that.
Hey, cheers, man. It's been a long time, brother. That's 12 years ago, and we sold out a show then, wow. And we have a show coming up. We're reuniting on November 20th at the Haltom City. Man, is this your first show during COVID, like in physical? I know you did the car show, right?
Yeah. Well, this is going to be the second one. This is going to be the second, show, a physical show. To actually be in front of my fans and be able to, actually see them face to face and perform, for them. And I got to tell you, man, I'm grateful for you to take this opportunity and obviously even the chance to do something like this, especially in this time that we're living in. My hat's off to you, bro, for allowing me to be a part of this awesome event, which I know, from hearing from you, it's been doing fairly well. And, I can't wait to be in front of my fans and perform, these songs that, I'm always dying to perform in front of the public, man. It's just been kind of crazy staying away from all the traveling. I'm fiending for that vibe, that feeling of being in front of the fans again. So thank you for booking me, for making this a possibility, and for also making it a possibility for those people that have already bought tickets, and I'm sure we're going to sell it out, man. I already know.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the beauty of it. 12 years ago, we sold out, and it's going to be like a full circle journey to do my first show, because it's my first show organizing and putting something together since.
Oh, wow.
Pandemic. So,
well, there it is.
Like a full circle moment. It's like, hey, we sold out then, we got to sell it out again. So to those that are watching, buy your tickets now. Frankie J 7.eventbrite.com. But Frankie, I got so many things I want to cover with you, man. First and foremost, you mentioned the pandemic, and I do want to talk about that real quick. Obviously, it goes without saying, it's affected everybody, not just performers, but in specific when it comes to you, someone that's a live performer, someone that's constantly been touring for the past 20 years in front of audiences. How have you adapted, and what have you made of this whole entire transition? I know you did a few virtual shows. You did the Ivan show, and now you're coming out here to Dallas Fort Worth on November 20th. I mean, how has that been for you?
Man, that's a good question. I've been learning to adapt, and I think not just myself, but my family. We've been learning to adapt to our situation, not trying to be a victim of it, but try to come out of it in a strong way. Like, we're trying to do a lot of other things a lot of other things that we normally wouldn't do if this pandemic, you know, wasn't happening. I'm trying to do more things around my house. Like I'm actually remodeling some stuff in my home. Also taking the time to reflect, you know, on the good things that we have, on the blessings that you know God has bestowed upon us. You know, the time with my family has been a blessing to spend, you know, more time with them, and get to know my son on a whole, you know, not necessarily on a whole nother level, but on many, you know, in many other ways that I wouldn't, probably wouldn't get the chance to if I'd be traveling so much. You know, he's 20 years old. He just turned 20. He just had a birthday, September 30th. And it's been kind of cool to spend time with him in the studio, working with him, because I'm working on a new project. So, you know, just learning about him, learning about his everyday life. He just got a job, you know. And then with my daughter, you know, she just turned 15 in April. And, you know, spending time with her and getting to know her a little bit more, and what she likes, what she doesn't like. She's a teenager going through the crazy emotions of being a teenager, you know, going back into school. So those kinds of things I take to heart, and I try to, you know, savor them as much as possible. Of course, even, you know, with my wife, like, you know, we're probably almost about to kill each other. but you know, it's a good thing that we're, you know, that we're going through this, because, you know, as far as, you know, for us, family wise, because we're learning more about each other and we're spending more time with each other, even though sometimes we feel like, like, can you go that way and I'll go this way, and go upstairs, come downstairs. Like, you know, we have our own little space that we normally, you know, need. Like for me here in my studio, I spend a lot of time in this studio, thank God, because I'm working on a couple of projects. And so little things like of that nature that I've been learning to, you know, adapt with this, you know, situation that we're living in. So I'm just trying to make the best of it. I'm not trying to dwell on all the crazy negativity that we see all over social media with the politics and, you know, a lot of the just the crazy stuff that's out there. You know, I'm trying not to think about that so much. So thank God for music, you know?
Yeah, seriously. Well, you know, with that being said, like I mentioned at the top of the show, name of the show is called Nothing Beats Experience. So I really want to dig in to your story. That's what we like to do. We like to tell the artist stories from the origin, from when it started to where they're at now. So many things I want to cover with you, especially being a Latino in the music industry. So we'll get to that here in a second. But first things first, how did you get to a point that you wanted to make this decision to pursue music? Because from what I recall, you got your start pretty early on as a teenager, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Freestyle music under the name Frankie Boy, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, that was it, man. I was 15 years old when I first signed my very first independent deal. I was 15, maybe turning 16. I was very much influenced heavily through the freestyle genre. You know, artists like George Lamond, who I always name first because he was basically an inspiration to me since I was a kid. George Lamond had a few, not just one song. He had like 5-6 hits, man, back to back. Battle of the Heart, Look Into My Eyes, Without You, Baby I Believe in You. He had a song with Brenda K. Starr, early 90s, called No Matter What. It was a beautiful, beautiful song, beautiful duet. And I always admired, you know, his vocals and his talent to dance, and to, you know, his charisma with the fans, with the people. So I learned a lot from him. I would listen to artists like TKA, Louder Than Love, Maria, One Way Love, Let Me Be the One, I mean, so many great songs from a lot of these, Latino freestyle artists. The Cover Girls, Sweet Sensation, Noel, Cynthia, Johnny O, Coral. Like, I could go on and on about these amazing artists. And at the time, man, turning 15, 16 years old, I was I was fresh into high school. And my older brother, he's 4 years older than me, so he was about 20 years old already at the time. He was into DJing and did a lot of quinceañeras with his boys, house parties, weddings, events that he would take me to when I was a kid. And so sometimes I would help him with the crate of records and vinyl, and I would help him bring it along to these parties. And I'd be this young kid just checking out everybody dancing and hanging out, and I was like, man, this is cool. I thought I was a little cool kid, and so I was very influenced by that sound. And thank God that my brother took me kind of under his wing with his clique at the time, doing all the DJing and stuff. So I was always, in the mix with all of those things that were happening. And keep in mind, I'm a young kid. And so my mom and my dad would always tell him to bring me along so that he wouldn't get in trouble. So, cause my older brother, man, was a wild guy, Yeah. So if he had me next to him, he would think twice, before he even got in trouble.
So let me ask you something. Obviously, you decide to pursue music, but what was the determining factor? Like, how did the music bug bite you? Was it something that you inherited from your mom and your dad? Did they sing? Like, when did you realize, like, I can go, like, I can really sing? Was it just going to parties and people hearing you sing out loud? You're like, hey, you're actually pretty good. Like, how did that happen?
Oh man, I'll tell you a real quick funny story. I was about maybe 13, 14 years old. I was in 8th grade, man. And I would sit behind a friend of mine named Amabel Baltazar. And I can say her name freely because I know she's cool with it. I haven't talked to her in many years, but this girl, man, had an amazing voice. She was, I want to say, of Samoan descent. And I think Filipino mixed, and had an amazing vocal talent. And she and I would go back and forth all the time about artists, on the R&B side. And I want to say Shy was very big during that time, those years, my junior high school years. And they had a song called If I Ever. And I remember always wanting, to sing like those guys, man. I was just so intrigued by their vocals, when I would hear the song on the radio, and the fact that it was an a cappella song. So I was super heavily intrigued by that sound. And Amabel and I would always kind of sing every now and then. Right. But before we even would get into like the singing, I remember she was sitting in front of me during history class, and I was sitting behind her, and this is how she found out that I could sing. I was humming a melody of that song, If I Ever, from Shy, and she did one of these, she's sitting in front of me and I'm behind her, and she goes, "Is that you?" And I just remember being super shy, and I just told her, like, "Yeah, that was me, but shut up, don't say anything," because I didn't want my friends to know that I could sing. I was a very shy, very timid kid. And so I remember she goes, "Boy, you need to do something with that voice." She's my age, but, girls at that age are a lot more mature than guys, So she had a mind of just, she had like an old soul. I feel like she was so mature. And she just looked at me and she goes, "Boy, you need to do something with that voice." She goes, "That's a good voice. You can sing." And then from there, we kind of bonded a little more as friends, and would always talk about, songs and singers, and, we would harmonize here and there. And I think she was writing some songs at the time. And so ever since I got that from her. I want to say it kind of gave me a little bit of a lift, you know, and inspired me to be like, you know what? I guess I can do this. So I was 13, 14 years old when I found out that I was like, that someone said, man, you're good, you know?
Well, you know, and you talk about R&B, you know, and you talk about Shy. By the way, that's one of my favorite songs of all time. I actually grew up heavy on R&B. So me and my brother used to have arguments because I was a big Boyz II Men fan and he was a Jodeci fan. So we used to like go back and forth. My older brother, he's 6 years older than me. And he'd always be like, Jodeci's better. And I'd always be like, Boyz II Men. But I mean, obviously, they're great groups. Who are some of the R&B artists that you would say that really influenced you outside of the artists that you've already named?
Oh, man, Brian McKnight. You know, he had such an amazing, still to this day, has an amazing falsetto. Another artist, of course, Michael, you know, he's the king of pop, but his vocals and his falsetto style of singing was just always intriguing to me. So between those two, man, Prince, Jodeci, Drew Hill, Joe, High Five, Silk, Next. There was a few others that I would jam to, man. I would just kind of close my eyes, man, just vibe out to their music. And then obviously Casey and JoJo, after they left Jodeci,
sure,
were big on these big pop R&B records like Crazy, All My Life. Man, John B was another guy, man. John B, which I can now say he's a good friend. You know, we've chopped it up a few times and we've, you know, thought about working together, and we actually have. We've actually been in the studio a couple of times, and he's been a heavy influence in me as far as R&B goes. And dude, man, Alicia Keys is another one. Usher, of course, Justin Timberlake. I can't forget about those two. I've always been a big fan of Usher, and I've always been a big fan of Justin Timberlake, because they both have their own sound, their own distinctive, you know, place in R&B. And so, you know, I want to say that they've been some of the biggest influences. Lionel Richie, Stevie Wonder. I mean, I could keep going.
Yeah,
There's so many. There's so many, you know.
Well, let's rewind a little bit. So you talk about, you know, you get signed pretty early on.
Yeah.
I don't know at what point that runs its course, and then eventually you join the Cumbia Kings for a while. That was a short-lived situation, but you were part of the Cumbia Kings for a while. How did that happen? I mean, were you discovered, or how did you get picked up by the Cumbia Kings?
Sorry. Oh, shoot, sorry. My phone over here is going off. I was about 20. I was 21 already. And I was working a regular job. I you know, between 18 to 21, I probably had about 5 or 6 different jobs during those 3 years. As you could tell, I was doing a lot of part-time stuff, you know. I was working at a hotel when this happened. Hotel del Coronado, which is one of the most historical hotels here in our city of San Diego in California. Frank Sinatra used to stay there, Marilyn Monroe, Luis Miguel, like all these huge stars. And I was working for a company called Swank Audio, and I was, you know, putting together sound systems, putting, you know, speakers up, microphones, mixers, all these cables all over the place. I was setting up sound systems for these big conventions, like Johnson & Johnson and like, you name it, all these different, you know, big companies, corporations. One day I get a call from a very good friend of mine named John Paul Ramirez out in Austin, Texas. I'm already 21 years old. I'm working a part-time job. I had already gone to Texas and I had met, you know, certain people in the music industry. I was doing a lot of things independently. I was already recording stuff on my own, you know, with friends of mine, recording on 4 tracks, 8 tracks. And I get this call from John Paul Ramirez, and he says, "Yo, Frankie, um, I know that you've always been wanting to be a solo artist, but there is a group called the Cumbia Kings here in Texas, and the lead guy is A.B. Quintanilla from the Selena y los Dinos. Would you consider joining a boy band?" And I'm like on the phone, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, I'm not doing anything right now. I'm working, a part-time job. So anything that comes my way, I would, and it's a great opportunity. Of course, I would love to. So he goes, "Great. I'm going to call you back." And he hangs up. Then, I get a call from Charles, who was my ex-manager. And he goes, "Hey, so I gave A.B. Quintanilla your number, and he's looking for an R&B English and Spanish speaking person, obviously who can sing." He goes, "I think it's a great opportunity for you. I think you should take it. Talk to him." So, next thing I know, I get a call from A.B. And he says, "Yo, man, can you do an audition?" And so I'm like, "Yeah, how do you want me to do it?" He goes, "Well, right now that I got you on the phone, I would love to hear you sing and see if it's something that we're interested in, because I hear that you can sing." And goes, "Can you wait a second?" I'm like, "Yeah." So then I hear him do something with the phone. I guess he was doing like a 3-way call or whatever, and he calls his business partner, Cruz Martinez. So then now there's 3 of us on the phone, and he's like, "Yo, can you sing something for us?" I'm like, "Sure. What do you guys want me to sing?" And Cruz goes, "Sing your favorite song right now." So at the time, there was a group called As Yet. I don't know if you remember As Yet.
Absolutely. I know what song you sung already.
So the song was a song called Last Night. And then I go ahead and sing that, right? And then there's a little part on that song that has like a little falsetto. It's like a little falsetto. So it goes, I mean, the record. "Last night, you were so into it. You told me secrets that you never told us. So you were so nervous and yet oh so comfortable as we explored your image of love. I drank your wine as you taste mine. I kissed your lips. You felt my body slip." Here comes into your soul. I almost cried 'cause it was so beautiful. And that was it. So he was like, "All right, man, I'm getting you on the next flight over to Corpus. Make sure you quit your job. Don't even give you 2 weeks notice." And I'm like, "Oh man, I can't do that." I go, I'm honored. Let me go ahead and give my 2 weeks notice. And of course they respected that, and they were like, "Yo, you're dope, man. You're a good looking cat. The only thing that sucks is that you're all the way in San Diego, California." He goes, "We're just going to have to fly your ass over here." So, that was the end of the conversation. Man, the next day, man, I went over to my boss, and his name was Scott. And I told Scott, I said, "Hey, Scott, man, listen, I auditioned for this boy band. I don't know if you're familiar with Selena." And he goes, "Yeah, of course I remember Selena." And then he goes, "Who's the group?" And I said, "Oh, they're a brand new group. They just started. They're called the Cumbia Kings, and they gave me an opportunity to sing with them, and they want me to join their group. Can I give you my 2 weeks notice?" And he goes, "What the hell are you still doing here? Get out of here." And I'll never forget those words, because that was someone that was so about somebody else making it. Like, he didn't care. He had his own job. He had his own career already. He was making his money. All he wanted for me was the best, you know, for me. And I remember him saying this to me. He goes, Frankie, then what the hell are you still doing here? Get out of here. And I go, you don't want me to give you my 2 weeks notice? He goes, no, get out of here. So I left. And the rest is history. Like, I was on a flight probably 3-4 days right after that. And, you know, I went into a city that I didn't know anyone. I didn't know anybody. I left my family. I left everything. I took a chance. I went. It was a leap of faith. Didn't know if it was going to be a good thing or a bad thing. I just went ahead and did it, not looking back. I remember telling my mom and my dad, Dad, Mom, I'm sorry, I'm going to leave. I quit my job. I'm getting an opportunity to sing for, you know, the Cumbia Kings, Selena's, you know, brother, A.B. Quintanilla. And my dad goes, are you sure that that's what you want to do? And I said, yeah, this is exactly what I want. I was 21 years old, you know, and he goes, okay, if that's what you want, we're going to support you. But just know that this might not be successful for you. Just keep that in mind. And I remember telling my mom and my dad, I'm going to make it. And my mom and my dad just looked at each other like, all right, well, let him go, you know? And so that was kind of like my turning point there, you know, as far as deciding what I was going to do with my life. Because I always knew that I wanted to do something with music. I just didn't know what it was going to be. And, man, I just remember taking that first flight, being nervous. It wasn't my first time flying because I had already flown a couple of times. And I remember flying on Southwest Airlines, so I'll never leave that airline, man. I'll always be, you know, an official member of Southwest Airlines, man, because that's kind of right.
Southwest, what's up, man? You know?
Yeah, shout out to Southwest Airlines.
You know, so here's what I want to know: like during the time of Cumbia Kings, right? Because obviously, you know, you weren't there for an extended period of time, but you know, I'm assuming coming out of being a freestyle artist, now going into a group, it's all about evolution. It's all about growth. It's all about having a better understanding and your own identity. At what point would you say that you went from being just a strong vocalist or just a strong singer to being an all-around performer? You know, like, right. And you know what I mean by that, right? Like,
oh yeah,
actually knowing how to perform and work an audience and do all that. Would you say that kind of started developing in that time frame, or would you say you were already a fairly good, you know, psychologically a fairly good performer going into Cumbia Kings?
I think, you know, I already had the understanding of the stage. I had the understanding of connecting with the people. All of those things were already in my mind because I did a lot of concerts, like talent shows, I should say, not concerts, talent shows in my high school years. And I did a lot of performances, you know, just like through friends and stuff like that. So I kind of already had the sense of being in front of a crowd. But I got to be honest, man, like joining the group, the Cumbia Kings, it felt like it was my university, my college. It was like the necessity for me to evolutionize into or mold me into the artist that I would soon become. And when I was performing with the guys, they already, when I joined the group, they were 6 months into the group already. So they had already developed, they had already been performing. They had already filmed a couple of videos. This is July of 1999. They started, I believe, in 1998. I want to say during the month of October, November, during those months. So I think they already had about 6 to 9 months already in, almost, close to the year. So they already had their own fusion between themselves. They already had, everybody had their own little placement, you know? So it was like a team effort. And I remember AB telling me, you are going to be next to me. because you're the newbie, right? So I'm going to teach you what you need to do when you're performing with us. DJ goes up first. Baby Drew is backups, so he's going to go up second. You come in third. And so when we were performing, he would give me certain parts of the songs. You know, mind you, they had already recorded their first album, which was Amor, Familia y Respeto. And I had to learn those songs because I never took part in recording those. So, but he did say to me, he goes, you're going to help out DJ because I don't want him to lose his voice. So you're going to come in and you're going to help him with the leads. And so I started learning all the songs that they would perform. And so he kind of gave me an assignment, right, for each individual song. And then I kind of started checking out how AB would talk to the crowd, and then how DJ would kind of talk to the crowd, and, you know, and kind of learn from that, their way of performing, you know, because I was always performing always by myself. I never performed with the group. So this is my first time learning how to be with people and entertainers, you know, for the first time. And I'm kind of scoping out everybody, learning from everybody. They all had their own individual personality. So that right there was like, okay, so then I need to kind of do the same thing. You know, I need to figure out who am I in this group and what do I bring to the table? So I started learning, man, how to control the crowds. I started learning how to get the fans intrigued by you, to have them get involved with you. How do you get them to pay attention to you? Those kinds of things. And man, it was my school. It was my university, my college. And I learned a lot, you know, from being in the group. So when I was able to finally grow my wings and fly out my nest, I was confident that I already knew what I needed to do in order for myself to be successful in what I wanted to do as a solo artist.
So as we turn the leaf and we start going into the solo career, and now you go from Frankie Boy to being Frankie J, because I don't know, were you were still Frankie Boy in the group, right?
No, there was already a Frankie Boy in the group. He was one of the percussion players. He was drummer, percussion player. He would play congas. So because he already had, you know, time with them, I think he was probably only like a couple of months with them. And, you know, AB goes, since there's already a Frankie and I know your name is Frankie, do you mind changing your name? And I'm like, no, I don't mind it. He goes, what about Cisco? Because my name is Francisco, right? So I'm like, you know, I used to be called Cisco when I was a kid. I go, so no, it just brings back, you know, childhood memories. So yeah, I don't mind it. And he goes, but I need you to dye your hair blonde. And I'm like, but there's already a Cisco with blonde hair, Drew Hill. And he goes, so what? You're the Mexican Cisco.
Well, you know, so it's funny because before you turn the leaf over, you know, there was a song that was actually featured on one of the Cumbia King albums, which went on to be a single that you released commercially as a solo artist. To me, this song is a classic. It's called Don't Wanna Try.
Yeah.
And that song served as a soundtrack to a heartbreak for me.
Oh, man.
I was so caught up on this girl back in the day. Oh, my gosh, bro. I burned that song on the CD, bro. So I always go back to that. But, you know, it's so funny because for those that may not remember, because now you're talking 2001, 2002, right? And
yeah.
Time flies, man. It's already been 18 years, but let me kind of give people a reminder real quick, a refresher. I've always been an avid Frankie J fan, a supporter.
Yeah.
I've stood in line at your freaking autograph sessions at Best Buy. You know what I mean? Like, and
that's dope, bro.
Yeah.
That's dope.
This is the crazy backstory behind how much I've actually supported your career. But you were killing it, bro. You were on TRL. And to me, it was such a big deal because you mentioned Charles earlier. That's around the time I want to say Ladium really formed, right? Like really became like a management entity where they were, you know, they had you. I think they had Bash. A handful of artists, Natalie. I don't remember the whole
Millionaire. Mm-hmm.
Correct, but I remember you were really the first Mexican American R&B artist that I had ever seen represent for us on national TV. You were like legitimately on MTV, and this is on your solo material with Don't Try, and then eventually you landed the record with Bash, and you guys did Sugar Sugar, which is a fucking classic, man. I mean, there's no other way to word it, man. At this point, like, still performing it 20 years later, you know. So that's the mark of a great record. But let's rewind here, man. That time frame, how was it transitioning to being a solo artist, having commercial success? Because you charted, and you were on Billboard, and you really were, and I'm sure you heard it, kind of one of the first Mexican Americans to ever do that on the R&B side, you know?
Yeah, you know, it was mind-boggling to me because I didn't know to what extent my music would go. You know, I just wanted to do something solo, and that's always been a dream of mine. But like I said, I went in and did what I had to do first before moving forward and doing the solo thing. You got to make a lot of sacrifices in the very beginning. It's a lot of decision making, making the right decisions, doing the right thing, and learning, being a student first and foremost before you can even become a teacher, you know? So by doing all those things and finally taking the leap of faith again to do the solo thing, I really didn't know what I was getting myself into, you know?
Yeah.
I was very nervous. I wasn't scared, I should say. I was more like concerned about what were my fans going to think of me by leaving the group, because we were a very well-established Mexican-American group that was doing a lot of big numbers out in Mexico, and we were doing some big numbers in the United States. People were telling me, I remember some of the people that I knew, they're like, "You're crazy. Like, why are you leaving a group that's so successful? You guys have sold millions of albums. Like, what's wrong with you? Why are you deciding to leave now? You've only been with them for 4 years." And I just said, I just feel like I'm ready. You know, I feel like I'm ready. And within that time that I was in the group, I was buying equipment, you know, utilizing that money and investing it into myself, and also investing a lot of time into learning how to produce and watching, you know, the steps to songwriting, because I was doing a lot of songwriting with AB and with Cruz. And they saw something in me that obviously was not within everybody else. They were like, "Well, we picked you because we think you can do some really, really great lyrics on the songs that we need for ourselves on the English side," because we were doing both English and Spanish. So they picked me. I don't know why. You know, they just said, "We picked you to come on board with us, and you know, we see that you want to work." And so I was very hungry, man. And I still am, even to this day. Like, I'll never stop. You know, my love for music is so deep, you know. So they saw something in me, and I started doing a lot of writing. So the times that we were not doing studio time with them, but I was in my 1-bedroom apartment in Corpus Christi doing songwriting for myself, because not knowing that I would one day do the solo thing. And then one day, man, I showed this song that I had written to AB. And I remember just playing it on the piano. I was just going from chord progression, doing this. That's all. Those are the only chords that I was playing. And I remember just writing it, and he was like, "Yo, those are really nice chords. Like, what is the song about?" And I said, "It's a heartbreak song." And at the time, I was going through a very tough relationship. You know, I was by myself. I had a girlfriend already, which I ended up marrying afterwards. And so we were going through a really tough time, and I felt heartbroken. I felt by myself. I felt alone, pursuing the musical career that I thought was going to be all fine and dandy, but obviously come to find out there was a lot of sacrifices, a lot of sadness that kind of went through. I had to go through in order for me to get to where I needed to be. And so when he heard the lyrics, man, he was like, yo, man, I need that song. And in my mind, I'm thinking, you need that song. That's my song, And he goes, I said to him, I said, well, maybe I could sing it, and we could put it on the album. And that was it. He only heard it one time. And he goes, all right, let's keep that. And let's, write some more songs. And so I kept writing, and I wrote a few more others. And then when it was time for the album to get done, which was the album 4, he never asked me for the song again. And so I'm thinking, well, shoot, man, this is my last album with him. We had already been going through some issues with the group, with some of the guys. I was even, they were thinking of letting me go for being late to this show that I did in San Antonio with the Cumbia Kings. So I was already kind of on his shit list in a way, AB's shit list. Yeah. And so then I got the news that I was terminated for reasons that AB had. And it was like, you know what? I remember Cruz calling me. He goes, dude, you're fired. And I just said, okay, maybe this is a sign. It's a sign from God that I have to go and do my solo thing. So I didn't think anything of it. I wasn't sad. I wasn't devastated. I was like, all right, cool. So I remember when I got that call, I started packing up my stuff. And I was already making moves to get a U-Haul truck and the whole nine to head back home to San Diego, because what was I going to do in Corpus Christi? So finally got all my stuff, and then, I left Corpus. And with those records, with Don't Want to Try in my hands, a song called We Still, I had already done a few others, a song called Just the Way. I had done another one called Can We Still Be Down that never made it to the album, to my first solo album. But they were records that I had already were already brewing. And when I get home, when I get to San Diego, it was like looking back, and I'm like, okay, now what am I going to do? So the first thing that came to my mind was I called the same person that called me to join the group, which was Charles Chavez, my manager at the time, my ex-manager now, just a friend at that moment, during that precise moment of leaving the group. And I called him actually not as I got home, as I was going home. I was still in Texas, and I'm driving. And I said, yo, Charles, I said, man, I just got fired from the group. And he goes, what? He goes, I just got fired from my job at Interscope Records, because he used to work for Interscope with Jimmy Iovine.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so he was responsible for a lot of big records, man. Charles did a lot of radio work at that time. So he was involved at radio, with radio stations, did a lot of radio work for other artists. And so then he goes, man, we both just got fired. He goes, where are you? And I said, I'm right around the corner of your house. So I remember going in my U-Haul truck, and I stopped at his house, and I just remember telling him, I said, dude, I want to go solo. And I got a CD right here that I want to show you. So then I showed him the demos, and I said, this is the song that is going to make me a solo artist. And I just showed him the CD, and he goes, play it. And I played him a few songs. I played him a song called Drinks on Me Tonight, Don't Want to Try, Just the Way, We Still, and a few others. And then I said, this is the one that I want. And I told him, Don't Want to Try It. To this day, he says that I picked Drinks on Me Tonight. I was like, no, I picked that one. Because that one had such a heartfelt feeling for me. And then he goes, bro, this is a hit. He goes, what do you want to do? I said, I don't know, but you're going to manage me. That's what I told him. I said, you're going to manage me, and we're going to start together. We're going to start working together. And that was it, man. So right after that, man, I took a trip, to my house, came back to San Diego. Within a few weeks, I was getting calls because he was showing the record out to so many other program directors from the country. And the first city, though, that played Don't Want to Try from an MP3 format was Z95 in Corpus Christi, Ed Ocañas. Soon after that, it was like a ripple effect. It was Power 102 in El Paso. Right after that, it was KTU 103.5, Frankie Blue out in New York. And then after that, it was just going from corner to corner all around the nation. And that's kind of like what it all came about, man. And all of a sudden, I'm hearing Tommy Mottola wants to sign me. Tommy Mottola flies me to Miami to his Star Island mansion. I go to Miami. I knock on his door, bodyguard greets me. He comes out. I go in his house, and he starts talking to me about signing me and, to Casablanca Records. That doesn't happen. It was a cool meeting, though. It was awesome, cool experience to kind of go to Star Island and get to meet him and stuff, Tommy Mottola. I fly back home. We signed a little management agreement between Charles and I. And then the bidding war begins. It's Interscope. Jimmy Iovine wants to sign me. Donnie Einer over at Columbia Records wants to sign me. We're getting calls from J Records with Clive Davis. We're getting calls from Capitol Records, from the president of Capitol Records. We're getting calls left and right that we want to sign this kid, Frankie J. And so Charles and I are just looking at each other like, what's going on? So finally at the end, the two labels that are kind of going up against each other was Sony Columbia and Interscope Fonovisa at the time. And Charles just kind of left it for me. He was like, bro, it's your career, it's your life. What do you want? And I said, well, they're both amazing labels. I'm going to go with the one that I grew up with as a kid, watching all these, Latino artists doing both Spanish and in English on the pop side. He goes, keep in mind, you're doing R&B music. You're not doing pop music like them. You're going into the urban side, And I said, damn. I said, that's actually a good way to put it because, Mark Anthony was signed to Sony. Ricky Martin was signed with Sony. Gloria Estefan was signed to Sony. Shakira was signed to Sony. The only big artist that was signed to Interscope on the English-Spanish side at that time was Enrique Iglesias, but they're all doing pop. So here's this Mexican kid from San Diego, California, born in Tijuana, doing, R&B music, and none of these labels have ever worked with someone like this kid. So I said, I'm going to chance it. Let's just go with Sony. And man, I ended up signing with them. It was my first time seeing a bunch of zeros, on this contract. And I'm 25 years old. It says $1 million on the contract. And I'm 25 years old. And I'm looking at Charles and looking at the contract. And I'm like, dude, this is crazy. Like, what am I getting myself into? And he goes, your life is about to change. And then soon after that, the publishing deals came, and Don't Want to Try was the Kickstarter for everything. Just knowing that I was living in a 1-bedroom apartment with a dream and sacrificing so much that it led to, obviously the hard work also leading to a contract that I never in my life thought I would ever get. But I knew that that hard work was about to pay off, and that sacrifice was about to pay off.
But did you know, and looking back, I'm sure just living in the moment, it's hard to really digest everything. But did you and Charles ever look at each other and know, like, we're about to break barriers because you guys really, really paved the way for the next generation? I mean, there was like a Latin craze around that time. You mentioned Ricky Martin. You mentioned Enrique Iglesias. They started getting Chiquita to do crossover records and Mark Anthony, but it wasn't what you guys were doing.
Right.
It wasn't what you guys were doing. It was just you guys went straight into this format. And speaking of Ed O'Connor's, I don't want to kind of skip any steps here, but I do remember in the interview with Bash, because I specifically asked Baby Bash how Sugar Sugar came about. And his variation of the story kind of was that Ed O'Connor's kind of brokered that record to happen. Or he played the record for the first time. I don't know how it happened, but you guys made the record happen and it popped. Like, so it's like everything's kind of like, it all intertwined, you know what I mean? But I think the thing that kind of popped to me, and this kind of goes back to something I really wanted to ask you, being a Mexican-American artist, like, first of all, our people are passionate. And they support, unlike no other, when they gravitate towards you, and when you become one of us, we will stand behind you to the end. And that's why you're able to tour 20 years later and sell out shows. Like, you're going to sell out the show on November 20th.
We're going to sell it out, man.
Shameless plug. Shameless plug. But seriously, like you went on a hot streak, man. You don't want to try. You do the record with Bash, Sugar Sugar, and then somewhere, I don't even know at what point you got Obsession.
Right after Sugar Sugar.
It was just like one after another, Like, I don't know how often you reflect on that time, but did you realize what was happening and the enormity of breaking barriers for the Latinos and, just in general, what was it being a Mexican-American artist in this music industry? Because I'm sure that people wanted to pigeonhole you, or people wanted you to be the token Latino. Hey, we're honest records. Like, kind of speak to that.
We first and foremost, man, we're just doing music just because we loved it. And to this day, that's all we do. We just have a love for music, and we enjoy every second, every minute, every hour, every day, every week, every month, every year in the studio. Like, that's us 24/7. That's me 24/7. Now, did I know, or did we know what we were in the brink of accomplishing? We knew to a certain degree that we were making changes in the industry, especially with us being Mexicanos. And as for me, being one of the probably very few, or if not maybe the first one to break into this urban world with R&B, as far as a singer, being Mexicano, kind of had a hint that was happening, but we didn't know how big or how much of a big move it would be into the industry, because we did in many ways go through some challenges with the industry. They were trying to put me in a box. Oh, he's Mexicano, he's Mexican, and he's doing black music. He's doing R&B music, rhythm and blues. We don't know if that's going to work. We don't know if that's going to even be something that people will look at, especially his people, because his people probably won't support him because he's doing black music. They're going to think that he's a washed out Mexican. Well, it ended up biting them in the ass, because the first single, Don't Want to Try, they wanted me to do a Spanish version, which I was I was already 10 steps ahead of it. I had already translated the record in Spanish before they even asked me if there was a Spanish version of Don't Want to Try. And when the record went top 10, they were trying to do the whole Spanglish thing. And I was like, cool, that's awesome for me, because I want to be known in both markets, because obviously I speak Spanish. But they didn't know to what degree it would cause, this ruckus, and this awakening in the industry with Latinos and Mexicanos, whatever you want to call us. And right after that, it kind of like, it was like a big old explosion. And Sony was just like, wow, like, what do we do with this kid now? So in that moment, like, they were kind of dumbfounded in a way. Like, they were like, well, what did we just sign? This kid is a talented kid, came out of a very successful boy band, and he's doing not what he was known for in the very beginning. He's doing something totally different, like apples and oranges, And so that's where my manager took the lead, and he says, we need to continue this, and we cannot like let the label tell you what to do. And so he goes, we need to put something out now after this single, because it's a ballad. So you need some kind of a up tempo or a mid tempo. And this was before the album What's a Man to Do, right? This is just the single, Don't Want to Try. But we had already had other songs in the works. Sugar Sugar was the second song, was going to be that was going to be my second single. And I remember when we first wrote that record, we wrote it here in San Diego, in Chula Vista, actually, at a friend of mine's house where I recorded Don't Want to Try. And I remember, Charles showing the record to Cumbia, and he was like, this is what needs to be Frankie J's second single. And I told Charles, I said, dude, I trust you. Let's go with it, because I love the record too. And it was very different, for me, from having a ballad, very R&B ballad, to something that was a little more on the hip hop side, but I'm kind of giving it that R&B flavor with my hook on it. And then Bash coming in on the raps. It had a little twang to it, because he had that Texas sound with that Cali feel at the same time. And it was super different, had a pop appeal to it at the same time. And I remember he showed it to Cumbia, and they're like, nope, we don't like it. Frankie doesn't sound good compared to, what he can really sound like if he was to really sing a song. And we're like, and Charles was like, I don't know what these guys are saying, what they're thinking. They're out of their mind. They're crazy. This record is a smash. And I said to him, if they don't like it, let's go with a different single. Let's have Bash get signed with this record, because I think during that time, Bash was thinking of selling it to me for $5,000. And I was going to pay the $5,000. But when I got that feedback from Cumbia, them not liking it, it was not worth it for me to keep the record, because they were not going to push it. They were not going to put the money behind it. You know what I mean? So it only made sense for Bash to keep the record, get signed to Universal with that record, because Universal wanted that record, and they wanted it, they wanted to sign Bash. So when they did, and finally I said, dude, this record is for Bash. Like, let him use it, get him signed, and then we can tour together. And if it's a hit, it's going to bite Cumbia on their ass. Then we can move forward and do more things. So we were kind of trying to strategize a plan, and it worked. Bash got signed. He was on tour. Actually, he went on tour with me on my promotional tour with me while I was performing Don't Want to Try still with radio. So whenever I would come out, I would bring him out, and we would do Sugar Sugar. And then I would perform Don't Want to Try. So we were doing these big radio shows, and dude, the song started growing its own legs. Soon after that, it was like, it was skyrocketing. And Cumbia was like, what did we just do? Like, why didn't we just get Frankie to sing this one as get his second single? We could have had another platinum. We could have had a platinum plaque on his wall, like on the album. And they were making some crazy moves, some dumb moves. But luckily I had a good team that was basically like, someone like Charles that knew what he was doing, taking the lead, with these records. And then that was it for Sugar Sugar. And, it became a monumental record for the both of us, and a classic, just like Don't Want to Try. And then we were like, all right, well, since we let that go from Frankie, like, we got to think of another record. We got to figure it out. Luckily, Charles had a really good relationship with Universal. That Obsession came around. The next record came around. And that one was supposed to be for Bash. Obsession was supposed to be for Baby Bash. So because we did like an eye for an eye, we looked out for each other. Bash wanted to keep Obsession, but Charles was like, no, like, we got to give this record to Frankie, man, and let Happy produce it. And Bash was like, nah, man, I want that for my single, like for my next single. And Charles was like, no, we got to give it to Frankie. Frankie can sing the hell out of it, stay on the record, stay as a feature, and let's keep this ball rolling so we can all tour together. That's exactly what happened. Obsession went to sell 1 million freaking singles back even before this whole single deal started happening. And it kept us touring. It kept us going. So a lot of people thought that me and Bash were this dynamic duo, which we were only doing our own thing. We were just kind of, he was doing his thing, I was doing mine, separate artists, but being successful together. And that's kind of how it all came about. Like, a lot of people don't really understand, how these records came about. Sugar Sugar was supposed to be for me. Obsession was supposed to be for Bash. But they don't know the history. They don't know the true stories behind these records. But at the end of the day, it didn't matter who the record belonged to, as long as we kept the ball rolling and kept supporting each other and kept us, out on the road.
I look back at that time and like I mentioned to you, not to constantly drill the whole thing about being Latino, because you talk about the around the time Ricky Martin, Jennifer Lopez, Shakira, they all came in, there was a wave, and that same wave has occurred over the last 2 or 3 years, and people are seeing how much Latinos are really prominent in the music industry, and how much, in a lot of ways, like, we have a big footprint in the business.
Yeah.
Back to that time with you, Charles, Bash. I'm glad you mentioned Happy, because I was going to mention Happy.
Yeah.
You guys really, again, paved the way, man. And I need to give you your flowers and just kind of remind you of how big that was for the culture. And maybe the culture at times doesn't let you know how much it's appreciated and how much, it was needed at that time, because it gave us a certain level of legitimacy. I mean, shit, Happy's still producing big records to this day. Charles is still managing. Charles is with Ali Brooke right now, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. So it's not like you guys, and you're still touring, Batch is still making music. Like, it's 2020, bro.
We're all still working.
It's 2020,
Yeah.
Like,
it's 2020, and the ball is still rolling. We're still working. We're still putting out music, and we're continuing the journey. Like, none of us have stopped ever. Yes, there are new artists that are now out there that are doing big things, but the trick to this whole industry is to keep the longevity, to keep your friendships, to keep the relationships, to stay out there idle to your fans. That's the beautiful part about it. And it's not always going to be about what's your new hit or what's going to be your next big record. As long as you stay consistent and you stay idle to your fans will always support you. They will always love you and always extend their arms to you and welcome you to their radio, to their car, to their living rooms, to their speakers. Wherever they're listening to music, they're always going to welcome you into their lives. And that's the beauty of staying consistent. There's a lot of artists out there that unfortunately have not been able to do that because of either them getting a, maybe how do you say, they've been robbed, or they've just had a really bad taste of in their mouth of the business, and they just choose to get out. They don't want to be a part of the industry. I mean, the industry is music industry is a very, very hard industry to be in. You have to have thick skin in order for you to keep sustaining yourself, and to keep the ball rolling. It's tough. There's a lot of sharks in the industry, and you just got to know how to dodge all those things and keep yourself out there. So yeah, we're still here. I mean, Happy's doing his thing, producing for Ariana Grande, Miguel, who else? I mean, he's working with a lot of people, and just the other day I shot him a text message telling him like, yo, I need you for this new album. I'm putting together a new album, a new R&B project, and I need you on it, Of course, I'm gonna have Bash on the project as well. I just got me and Rasby from B2K just did a record together with featuring Paul Wall. Paul Wall was featured on one of my early records with Cumbia, a song called "On the Floor," which was part of the album that went platinum, The One. And this album that I'm working on right now is called Back to Us, and Back to Us is it's a symbol of going back to the roots, going back to my friends, those who were with me from the very beginning to now. And it has a very broad meaning, when Back to Us, the title. It's also a symbol of love, going back to love, because how many songs are on the radio right now that ain't talking about love? That are talking about hoes, and I want to F you, and I want you this and this and that, the booty this and booty that, and that whole thing with Cardi B has that what's that record?
The WAP.
The WAP. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, look, do what you do. It's all good. Like, but why not bring back some of that love? Relationship stuff, and who knows, it might be on the radio, it might not, but at least I'm doing my part in keeping love alive, keeping it consistent, and trying to introduce that part of music to the younger generation, because that's what was taught to me when I was learning about music. I mean, singing songs of love that were relationships, that were something, that it was transcending positive messages to the younger generation, and so that's what I'm doing with this new album that I'm working on.
Well, before we wrap up, I got a few more questions for you, and just answer them as best as you can. Currently right now, are you independent?
Yes, I'm independent. Yeah.
And so you've been doing your independent thing for a while. What would you say the biggest difference between what you were doing prior to being independent to being independent now? Like, what are some of the I don't want to say the pros and the cons, more so like, what are some of the things that you've learned about you actually doing this 100% on your own? Like,
well, definitely the budgets. The budgets are not like they used to be, because you're putting money out of your own pocket. But the good thing is too, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's actually, a very good thing, because you're seeing every dollar going into it and coming out, and it's your baby. It's your project. Another thing is you're in control of everything, and you're making decisions on your own. You're basically deciding on, production, song selection. You're not, having a room of 20 people deciding what's going to be on your album. Like, these are the records that I want on my album, and that's it. I have the freedom of shooting a video whenever I want, working with whoever it is that I want, instead of saying, yo, you need to work with so-and-so because this person has a huge record with this other artist. And, you know, sometimes it can work, sometimes it won't. There's a lot of records that I worked on my last albums with Cumbia that never made it to the album. Why? Because they were just too far off of what I was doing. And there were some big producers, you know, big songwriters. So not always just because this producer has done a big hit for so-and-so doesn't mean that it's going to work for you, you know? So I feel that doing things independently, it opens up your eyes to a lot more things, you know? And I think it's a beautiful thing, man, doing your own projects and independently deciding what it is that will be on your project. And I think it actually, you feel more like it's your own, it's your own, like it's part of you. And I think the being free, you know, on the decisions, that's where I think that's what I should say. It's probably the most, how do you say it? Most pleasant part about it.
The most fulfilling.
Yeah.
Let's talk about San Diego real quick. You know, I got love for San Diego, the 619. Shouts out to Frankie J representing San Diego. There's a few other cats that represent San Diego big time. Rey Mysterio.
Of course.
Got to shout out Rey Mysterio. I know you guys are boys.
Shout out to my brother Oscar. Yeah, man.
You gave him the legal name right now.
I got his full name.
Shout out to Oscar Gutierrez, right?
Yeah, there it is. Oscarcito.
And then we got Snow the Product actually from out there as well, man. And I would love,
of course,
I would love
shout out to Snow
to do some to link up and maybe y'all do a record together and maybe have Rey Mysterio I do the cameo in the video, keep it all the way 6'9", you know.
To the 619 on the ring.
Exactly.
No, you know what? Now that you mentioned Snow, we actually have a song together. We did something together years ago. If you haven't heard it, go to either Spotify or Apple Music. It's a song called "Not So Dangerous." It's very, you know, it's like a rock with you, you know, Michael Jackson kind of style. And she comes in and just kills it. She comes in and does her thing. It's called Not So Dangerous. And yeah, man, I mean, I would love to continue working with Snow. As a matter of fact, I'll probably reach out to her and see what she's doing and probably get her involved in this new album.
Hey, man,
why not?
And this is how we're going to segue Snow the Product into the final closing.
There you go.
This is a fun fact for all the fans. November 20th, we are having a show in Haltom City at Haltom Theater. Fun fact, when Snow the Product moved from San Diego to Fort Worth, she actually relocated to Fort Worth to Haltom City across the street from where my mom lived, and she lived in Haltom City. And that's
no way.
The show at. Indeed.
Get out of here.
See how I bridge that all together, baby? That's
dope. Hey, man, shout out to Snow. Shout out to Snow the Product.
To the Taco Bell across the street. So yeah.
That's why she moved right there, bro. That taco spot was probably the bomb.
Nah, but yeah, Haltom City, man. Let's talk about this and we'll close it out. DFW, okay. Dallas Fort Worth, November 20th. What has Dallas Fort Worth as a market meant to Frankie J as an artist? And personally and professionally, because look, the last time you were here, man, shut down. Now you
shut it down.
You know what I'm saying? They love you. Let's talk about that.
We shut it down the last time I was there. Of course, it was me, Baby Bash, MC Magic, Amanda Perez. Shout out to everybody. Everyone that came through that night. We sold that place out. It was a little bit out of control. We had no idea what was happening, what was going on. I don't know. Something was going on with the promoters. And but nonetheless, the people that did get the chance to make it, first and foremost, man, the people that did not get the chance to make it, I know we decided on doing like a makeup kind of a date for those people that did not get inside to see the show, because I'm sure there was about 500 or 600 people that didn't get to go in.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I think we did try to do. I tried to decide on a makeup date, but then this whole pandemic hit, so it kind of prolonged everything. I think that's still in the works. Don't quote me on it, but I think it is still in the works. But come November 20th, in Haltom City at Haltom Theater, man. I just want to, give my all to the fans. Fort Worth, Dallas, Texas means a lot to me. A lot of great memories in both of those cities. A lot of amazing, people out there, and just Texas. Period. I consider Texas as my second home because a lot of things happened in Texas for me. My career began. First and foremost in the music. My solo career also began there in the state of Texas, and I bought my first home in Texas, in Houston. So there's a lot of amazing, great memories, there in the state of Texas. Dallas and Fort Worth have always held me down every single time that I've, showed up to do my thing and perform, for the fans. So I can't thank Dallas and Fort Worth enough for the love throughout the years. So Haltom Theater, Haltom City, November 20th. I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to go down. Get your tickets ASAP. Let's sell this place out. We're going to have an amazing time. I'm performing, of course, the classics. And I'm also doing a few of the Spanish songs off the new album called Canciones que Recuerdo, which I'm sure there's already about 20 VIPs that have sold, which I will bring the CDs, and I have to ship them out to you as well for those that have already purchased the VIP bundle pack. But hopefully we get more, man, and I'll ship out more of these Canciones que Recuerdo albums out to you. And let's make this night another magical night, another memorable night. And, I'm excited to be a part of it, man. November 20th.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. I know that there's been some of the fans that were wondering, how it was going to go down because of the last situation. It's a new team putting it together to me. Full circle. 12 years after the first sold-out show, going on 13 years, and we're finally clicking back up. It's been a while. I'm excited for it. I look forward to seeing you. I appreciate you giving me your time. I appreciate the interview. I appreciate the insight. As always, man, look, I've told you from the beginning, I respect you immensely. To me, you are a legend. I've supported your career even before I worked with you, which is why I wanted to work with you. And it feels good to finally kind of reconnect after all these years.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So I look forward to it. Again, November 20th. Buy your tickets now. Frankie J, 817.eventbrite.com. Frankie, stay on the line. I have a little bit of stuff I want to run by you. Other than that, appreciate your time. To the fans, you say what?
Oh, man, I love y'all, man. Thank y'all for the love. And I'll see you guys November 20th, Haltom Theater in Haltom City. Come on, Dallas. Come on, Fort Worth. It's on. Y'all already know what it is. It's your brother, Frankie J. Peace.